Welcome back to the Healthy with Heartland podcast. My name is Justin. I am your host, also joined with your favorite co-hosts and creative directors, Simon and Shannon. How are we feeling today?
Feeling good. How's everyone doing today?
Another healthy day with Heartland.
Definitely is. Excited for today's podcast.
Today's going to be a little technical.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to learn a little something.
Yeah. We're getting outside our comfort zones today. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, before we get into all that, let's send it over for some announcements.
All right. Just real quick, Heartland family, if you are ready to reorder and you have not, we had such an amazing response to our June reorder special, which are our Nick's Swedish style light ice cream. So you can still reorder in the month of July and receive 4 pints, your choice of flavors, absolutely free with your reorder. So make sure to do that. And then when you receive your delivery and your reorder, you'll see our awesome delivery team, our delivery experts, as we like to call them. They're going to drop off your order, organize everything perfectly for you. So make sure to snap a photo and post it on your Facebook page. Tag us at Heartland Connect. That way you could be entered into our raffle, which we draw at the end of every month. So stay tuned for that. And with that, guys, let's get into today's podcast.
Let's do it. So on the podcast, we talk a lot about, dialing it in, the health and wellness aspect that goes into just life in general, what people are missing out on. And Justin is like the poster boy, I feel like, right? Would you say? Like he's like the poster boy for like dialing it in, like just the health and wellness, like this is your lifestyle. I feel like there's people that like look into it and all that kind of stuff, but like you live it.
Yeah.
Right. And so by living it, you're in that sort of community with people, like all the people that that, that give you this advice and that you can actually look into. And it's like you're always on the next like sort of wave or tip, like before it actually becomes like an actual trend, right? Like you're way ahead of it.
Trendsetter.
Before it happens, right? And I feel like this subject that we're talking about is one of those things as well, because I don't think it's, especially for me, like I enjoy talking about these kind of things because it's not like your run-of-the-mill sort of subject, right? Not a lot of people probably know about it. Most people are in terms of healthcare. And what are we talking about?
Yeah, so I say, let's tell them what we are going to be speaking on.
We're talking about the basically the Dutch complete test as well as the GI map that Justin took.
Yeah.
Right? And when I talk about healthcare, it's like, people have a certain view of what healthcare really is and how they do it, and they go to their regular physicians and they go to regular doctors. But I feel like the culture of it is kind of changing, where people are more so taking that into their own hands, and they're wanting to know their own sort of, like what's going on in their bodies. Yeah. And so I just, the reason, we want to bring this up again is because we want to dial it in, and Justin is a wealth of knowledge. And so I want Justin to take it away. Let's start off with why even do these kind of tests.
Yeah. Health and wellness just has so many levels to it, right? So, there's no end to the learning, and then science is progressing faster, and they're learning more about what's going on inside our bodies, hormones, all these different things, and then how our lifestyles and the way we eat and everything plays into that. So what we're talking about today is kind of what I think is the next level of finding out what's going on inside your body. So, you can eat a very healthy diet, you can exercise a ton, do all the basic things that we all know how to do. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, I don't even know if the next step is macros, and then measuring that and dialing that in, and then, doing the testing to know what your body fat percentage is and how to change those things. So the tracking, and what we're talking about today, the Dutch test and the GI map, is a very scientific analysis of all of the hormones in your body, all the pathways, how detoxification happens in your body, and how those pathways are related and performing to basically make your body function. And then the GI map side of things is basically how are your internal GI tracts metabolizing food? Do you have any parasites or other gut infection issues that you might not even know about? Right. And these two tests will basically tell you exactly what's going on in your body. And then a practitioner, an expert, in my case, I went through Dave Shutler, great friend of mine, learned a ton from him. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend doing this through someone that's a pro. So, because then you get your results, and then it's like, okay, well, how do we interpret these results? And then what are the action items? And you really need an absolute practitioner expert to analyze and then subscribe how you fix those issues.
Right. Yeah, because it's genetic testing, right? You're testing your genes. You're finding out, at that micro level, right, at the core, what are those things like Justin mentioned, those bacteria, those pathogens, perhaps overgrowth, things like that you're getting this deep dive, this insight into that from the outside and just a typical, healthy perspective, you may not know that you have these things going on internally. So this is a way to kind of gain that knowledge.
Yeah. And you talk about as far as the GI or even the Dutch test, like a lot of these things are testing the microbiome in your gut. And that's, I feel like, where it all kind of starts, right? It's right there in your gut. If your gut isn't healthy, you're not going to be healthy. So you can exercise and you can eat a certain type of way and you can do all those kind of things. But if your gut isn't healthy, and I think that's kind of like where it almost is like the transition, from just eating right. And maybe, okay, first I started shopping organic. And then after shopping organic, I got into, like you said, macros. Or can you kind of talk about that trail, Justin? Like, what is your health and wellness as we get into the test? But I'm just interested in knowing, especially for people that don't know, how did you go from, eating right and your health and wellness journey to now dialing it in with like the Dutch metal test or the Dutch
the Dutch test?
The Dutch test.
Yeah, I don't know how to, I guess the way I would describe it is kind of like, start with the white belt all the way up to the black belt.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now you've got a black belt. Now you start fighting competitively.
Yep.
And then you make the pro. And then you're in MMA. Like there's an endless amount of education and levels to this, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to sourcing food, how to eat and all that kind of stuff, generally speaking, without looking at the bio-individuality of a person, I feel like I got the black belt there.
Right.
But when we get into bio-individuality and how lifestyle and the choices of those foods are going to react in your body. That's not something that you can know without doing these tests.
Yeah, or even your genetic predispositions, right? Like you may have certain bacteria present because it was passed on to you genetically, right? Or you may have certain things present, or you may be missing certain things that then need to be included into your diet via, supplementation or, whatever that may be that's recommended.
And I think a lot of it has to do with lifestyle too, because over time, over periods of time, you may have been, you could have been eating a certain way, and I'm just talking personally, right? You could have been eating a certain type of way, and then, your gut can develop, like the really big thing right now is those autoimmune disorders, right? So your gut can develop those things by what you're doing and by what you're eating and not have been, genetically predisposed to it. Absolutely. But you wouldn't have known that you had something like that had you not done one of these tests that's like really dialing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And the thing that I really want to drive home, especially if you think you're a healthy person, healthier than 99% of people walking around, low body fat percentage, you exercise, you eat right, you do all this stuff. And you're like, no, I'm good. I don't need to do something like that. Like, I feel like I'm that person. There are things to work on. I promise.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a very eye-opening experience for me. I'll get pretty vulnerable about my results and kind of go through some of these things that are very eye-opening and things that I had to change. Like some things I had to stop cold turkey. I'm eating differently right now. I'm on a different supplement regimen, and my activity is completely changed because like the way a cortisol pattern is supposed to look in a normal, healthy person is as you wake up in the morning, cortisol kind of goes up and then it levels off throughout the day. And my ranges on cortisol are through the roof, like bad. Yeah. So which means, there's such a balance between putting healthy stress on yourself and then when it's out of control. Right. My stress way out of control. And I used to, think like I can do more. I can get up at 5. I can work out hard every day. I can work 16 hours a day, and I can see the consequences of doing that to myself in these tests. Wow. So the first subscription that I got from Dave was, okay, stop training.
Really?
Stop training. Just like self-care in the morning because my cortisol levels are really high in the morning. Yeah. And so what I'm doing right now is just 45-minute walks.
Nice.
Meditation,
Justin, this is so inspiring, but it's like, it's one of those things because if people don't know you, right, having worked with you and been here at Heartland with you, like watching just your growth, like you're that type of person that's like Jerry, right? Like go, like go get them. Like how hard was it when someone told you kind of like to slow down when you're like, oh man, like how do I do this? Like I'm so used to 100 miles an hour, like 0 to 100, like real quick.
Yeah. Here I am trying to find more capacity, trying to do more. And the subscription is do less.
Chill out.
Right.
Which is, it's tough to tough to swallow that, right? It feels like 2 steps backwards, you know, like I don't want to train less, you know,
Right.
I don't want to potentially lose some muscle mass, which Dave says is not going to happen. But,
Right.
so yeah, that's a lot of what I'm doing. I had to completely stop eating rice.
Wow.
So a lot of, you know, the creature of habit thing, I eat 3 cups of rice every day, right? I've been doing it for years and years and years. It's been what works for me. Well, there's complications in my GI map for too much of that. So I think the lesson there is just, you know, you need to spread it around. Don't eat the same thing every day.
Yeah.
You know, so lots of good lessons in here.
Yeah. It's great
Always
stuff
something to learn.
because, you know what I mean? Like, you're the poster boy for, you know what I mean? Like health and wellness,
Yeah.
like, you know, like again, sourcing of food, all that kind of stuff. And then to know, cause I know there's a lot of, you know, like, you know, just people out there that talk about a lot of things and they do a lot of stuff, but like you're living it. And so it's like to see that someone on your level, being a black belt, so to speak, right? Is then all of a sudden like, you know, like I have to kind of change. I've done all this work to get here. And now it's like, okay, now I'm here. And it's like, I have to kind of switch up the pattern or switch up whatever I'm doing because now I've dived into the actual statistics. And I think for me, like it's eye-opening and it's inspiring. And I'm like, oh man, like it should be inspiring to everyone to get to the next level. Like, you know, even having taken a step back or whatnot, because it's not like they told somebody, and I feel like people get it a little misconstrued. Some people don't, I want to take a step back and they just want to fall off kind of deal. Hand raised, right?
Yeah.
Some people, like, you know, like yourself, right? They're like, it's hard for them to turn that down. And it's like the exact opposite. You know what I mean? Like some people just want to be lazy and sit down on the couch and I don't want to do anything. And then some people are like, no, you for your health, you got to kind of slow down, take a step back and chill. And those people are like, oh, you know what I mean? Like it's almost the exact like opposite. And I think like, again, like if you are that person that is sitting on the couch, like I'm talking to myself right now. If you are that person that is not doing it, like take heed to that. Like get back on it, keep doing it, because like when I see things like this and I hear about stuff like this, like I just get, I mean, I'm emotional. I'm just so like hyped up off this because I'm like, man, this is 100 miles an hour. You're up to bat. And then they're like, okay, slow down. And you're like, okay, I got to slow down now. And it's only been 2 weeks though, right?
Yeah. But I mean, it's a different type of growth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because once you get to a level, like it's not growth. Like I, you know, going to the gym every day, doing my meal prep,
It's like routine.
doing the work, like at a certain point, like that's what I've been doing for a long time. I'm not growing anymore. Right. So it's cool you get to that level, but what's the next step? It's gonna like it's a
Something
mental
different.
thing right now because the growth is actually pulling back from that,
Right.
resetting all these systems, letting everything heal, and then when I come back to it, I'll be that much better
Better than ever.
and I'll probably get to a whole new level. So that's the way I have to look at it. Is it's a process like anything, and things are gonna be a little weird. You know, I'm taking a bunch of supplements, which we can go through. You know what I'm taking to fix these issues,
Right.
but it's not pleasurable. Like I don't feel great right now at all.
But I mean, how does it feel like, you know, like you mentioned having Dave like kind of being there, like guiding you? Like, I guess, do you feel like it would be totally different getting these results and not having like his guidance on how like to proceed forward, like things you could do to help fix those things?
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things like there in this Dutch test. It takes all your pathways and measures them, and then how things methylate, basically like detox out of your body. And one of the things that I had from just really high stress, elevated cortisol, it's actually pulling my testosterone levels down. So my test levels are at like the borderline, like low range.
Really?
And what's happening is if you look at the way the Dutch test flows, like the aromatase from that, estrone, estradiol, like all these different types of estrogens and hormones, it's affecting detoxification. And when you don't methylate this one pathway here, where I'm like on the borderline, like getting to a point where it would be very bad, like in the future, the glutathione detox, I guess, doesn't take place. And if you don't detox this pathway, that's how you end up with DNA damage and then eventually cancer.
Wow.
That's where, right? So the fact that you can diagnose this in advance
And
in a
do
test,
something about it. Wow.
and then, you know, part of what I'm taking every morning is a liposomal glutathione, 2 squirts in the mouth to just let it sit there for 30 seconds and then swallow. That's going to help repair this one pathway, and I may have saved myself DNA damage in the future.
Wow.
So when you think about that kind of stuff, like, is it worth doing the test? Yeah, I think so. You know,
Absolutely.
you think you're healthy, you think you're doing all these right things. There's stuff to address, I promise.
Right.
Absolutely.
What about if you're already healthy and you know what I mean, you're trying to dial it in, this is a great test. What about the people that are just, you know what I mean, like they're maybe they're not so healthy? Do you still recommend taking a test like this, or should they start somewhere else and then like
Work
start
their
with
way
the
up.
eating, you know, like a healthy diet and start making those choices and then take this kind of test? Or should they go into this test having gone through, you know, what you've been through?
I think it doesn't matter what stage of the game you're at. This is a great thing to do as a baseline. One of my one-on-one clients just did this whole thing, and he was doing very well, losing weight in the program. And then we're from the results from this, like he's got a totally different set of protocol that came out of it and issues that he's going to address, which is just going to make him that much more successful when he gets back on.
That's what I was thinking. Good
going
point.
hard. And
Maybe it makes even more sense to do it like not before or after. I'm saying it doesn't make sense to wait. You should just do it if you're going to do it, if you have interest in doing it. But you get that stuff kind of in order, and then you can, you know, start your healthy kind of, you know, muscle gain or whatever your goals are. If you get yourself to a good place in the gut microbiome, it's going to help you just in anything you're trying to achieve in the future, you know, whether that's weight loss, muscle gain, you know, whatever that is.
Because by doing that gut microbiome test and that kind of stuff, it is going to give you an idea of what you should be eating in general, right? Like if you're taking in gluten and maybe you're not supposed to, and you know what I mean, those kind of things, it will give you that kind of idea, correct?
yeah, mine pops really, really hard for no gluten. Like it was like I've got gluten sensitivities in there.
Yeah.
Right.
And even though, you know, I'm not doing any wheat products specifically because I don't want to trigger wheat issues, Dave said to just cut out all the rice because it can just have the same effect. Even though I'm doing all white rice, it's like I'm just going to pull totally back from that type of carb. And I'm eating, it's interesting, like you hear this a lot right now, like carnivore diet. I'm on a pretty like carnivore-ish diet.
Yeah.
I'm eating a lot of fruit,
Paleo.
a lot of meat. Yeah. And I just basically pulled out all the rice.
Low inflammation. Less stuff to inflame your body. But then it's like crazy because I really like paleo and I really like doing carnivore when we did carnivore. But like then they talk about how like vegetables and plants and fruit are like bad for you. So it's still, I'm like still stuck on that thing. But I really think that, like you said, eliminating the grains and breads and just things like that in general and sticking to like fruits, vegetables, and meat, especially like in the summertime, like what you would find like in nature, right, is good for you.
And I think a lot of what you're saying though is epidemiology, right?
Yeah.
It's like because you haven't taken one of these tests.
Right.
When you take one of these tests, and that's why I'm so interested.
Well,
because
I just took a genetic test, which told me like not anything about like what he's talking about. It told me more about like
which was still
genealogy, and did talk about like predisposition to like, you know, celiacs and things like that,
Right.
which I don't have the trait, but I'd be interested to see if I have inflammation or, you know, just things like that. So it's just really interesting how all those things are interconnected.
Yeah. And then I guess still having a predisposition to it doesn't mean that you do have it, just means that you could eventually, you have that trait that will eventually kind of like turn into that or something or whatnot, right?
Yeah, and I think like it's telling you about like excess and inflammation, right? Because inflammation is what leads to all like the issues, whether it's something that's chronic or whether, you know, like you said, it's autoimmune, those kind of things. So I don't know specifically what it's doing, and I'm kind of like asking because I don't know. I haven't taken it for myself, but yeah, I assume I did read that it is talking about it's going to measure whether you have potential for overgrowth that could lead to specifically autoimmune.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, one thing that's in here. So another reason to do this, you're going to learn so much.
Yeah.
Right. So stress causes the brain to release ACTH from the pituitary gland into the adrenal gland, and that's where the cortisol is being, and the DHEA, like that's what's being created through that process. So now I get to learn, you know, why I have this issue, and then I'm taking specific supplements that help metabolize the cortisol and get these pathways moving again. So you also need the professional to tell you how to address it, and then, you know, just get to work. So I'm just excited to see, you know, again, it's like, if you've never been under 20% body fat, you don't know what it feels like to feel good. So this is another example of what you don't know, and maybe I got a whole nother level of feeling good that I don't even know about that's right around the corner.
Yeah. Because that's exciting. Like you said, you've only been doing it 2 weeks. Like it takes your body some time to get used to anything that you're doing. So I think at least like 30 days or something. So you're still like right around the corner from probably feeling like the peak effect.
And I think you're feeling a little bit of the, you know, like as humans, we're used to that regimen. You know, like when you can get on that routine, you know, we're creatures of habit. You know what I mean? Like if we can stay on a routine, we can actually dial it down and be like, oh, I'm good here and I'm comfortable in this space, even though what I'm doing to the normal human being is like, you know what I mean? It's crazy if you compare it to what everybody else is doing, right? But when you do, like you said, like, especially even in exercise, you say sometimes like you're doing one thing, you're always switching it up. And I think that this is just more speaking to that, you're still dialing it in. And that's why, again, I keep saying it, but you're the poster boy for this because you never settle for just, oh, okay, I'm good here. Yeah. It's like, what's the next thing? And when you find the next thing, you're like, oh, now here's the next, you know, there's another solution in here. And that's why it's just been amazing to just watch the growth. And I'm just amazed at the fact that it's like, there's more to it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you reach the mountaintop and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, dust that off. Oh, there's Everest here. there's more. Like, you know what I mean? Cause it's amazing to really dial it in and really find out all those things that you're saying. And so you mentioned you are doing the one, supplement. Are you doing any others?
Yeah, it's pretty, overwhelming. It's because it's new and it's complex. So, I start the day with something called Ultra Clear Renew. It's basically the first phase of this detox or reset, whatever you want to call it. It's called the flush. Mm-hmm. And Ultra Clear Renew it's like a very detoxifying shake that basically like cleansing and restoring. Wow. So I mean, it's not a ton of pleasure. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Like you don't feel great taking this stuff, but it's also partly, I'm sure, just switching up a routine that I've had for a long time. Right. Yeah. So Advoclear, glutathione, histamine block plus, and they're very targeted on when you take them. Like the histamine block is before bed. Ultra Clear is a shake twice a day. And then the cortisol stuff in the Adrena Health, right? So I got Cortese for the first week was 2 caps 3 times daily. Now in week 2 until it's done, it's just twice a day, 1 cap. The Adrena Health is 2 caps in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. And then once the Ultra Clear is done, then I'm starting on EstroCort. And that's just the Dutch test stuff, the hormonal stuff. Then you get into the GI map. Yeah. And it's a whole nother protocol on top of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned kind of switching up your diet and then like what food specifically, I know you said like carnivore, like are you eating more of now?
A lot more fruit. Because I need to make up the carbs that I was getting from rice. You know? So
like berries and or just any kind of fruit.
So I'm doing more high carb fruits to get the carbs in. So bananas, berries. Okay. Nice. Yeah. So it's just changing, you know, what the source is of. Still trying to hit the same macros, you know, but get them in a different way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just meats, veggies, and fruit mainly.
Yeah. That's pretty much.
And no like fat really.
Well, you're getting the fat from the protein and the meat and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I still eat pretty fatty meats. Like I eat mostly beef. And yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
And yeah, in my GI map, I had H. pylori or whatever.
Yeah.
Was slightly elevated. So like you find these things in your gut test that. So that's why I'm taking Pylori X, 2 caps a day, GI Microbe X, and the GI Revive. So and Ultraflora Balance is. These are all part of the GI protocol for what was in my GI map.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
and I guess, you know, in talking about that, like, had you ever noticed, you know what I mean? Like any of the things now that you're supplementing for, had you ever noticed any of that in like when you're eating rice or anything like that? Or is this just more?
Did you ever have like bloating or like gut issues previously? Anything noticeable? No. Nothing at all. Yeah. Wow.
Not that I would know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But maybe when I'm done with this, I'll be like, holy crap. There's a lack. Like maybe I was more inflamed than I thought.
Right.
You know?
Wow.
Again, you just don't know until that's the hardest part about any type of success in life. And it doesn't matter what it is you just can't see it until you're there. And then once you're there, you can always get back to where you've gotten very easily. It's like people who make millions of dollars, they lose everything. They can do it again like that. It's the same thing. Like if you've done a weight shed, you've done it once, you know how to do it, you can do it again.
Right.
So I assume that when I get to the end of this, it'll be some sort of revelation that I don't know I'm going to have. But
cool.
That's awesome.
Part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
Every time you do something new.
Yep.
Absolutely. And it's cool to learn about, and I find it really interesting. I know you do too. You're like, oh, all about it.
Well, I mean, you know, we have this great example right in front of us, right? And when he talks about it, I'm like, oh man, that's super interesting. And what's more interesting to me is, you know, watching Justin or, you know, watching like these guys, you know, that I follow like on YouTube and stuff. It's like that sort of entrepreneurial, you know, like just go get it. It's like, that's inspiring to me. It's never wanting to be comfortable. It's never just being kind of satisfied, because I feel like I deal with a lot of those things too. It's like, you know, like there's times like right now, you know what I mean, where you just get like comfortable and you just don't want, like, you're not looking to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And so these things kind of inspire you to, oh, you know what, like, get off the I mean, I wanted to say a couple other different words here, but I mean, I know we're on a family podcast, but you know what I mean? Like, get off your and, you know what I mean? Get back at it, get back into the game. Because like you said, once you've done it once, like, you can do it again. It's just accepting that challenge, right? That first step, like, that's what you're doing now, is accepting the fact that, you know, most people would love to be like, hey, tone it down, chill out. You know what I mean? Like, most people are like, oh, heck yeah. You don't want me to go work out? I won't have to work out. You know what I mean? But to you, it's like, oh, okay. But now doing those walks and getting that different, it's almost like an enlightenment. You know what I mean? Because you think like you're in a certain level, and then all of a sudden you get enlightened to a different area of an aspect where you're like, oh man, like, okay, let me come back down here, so that, like you said, the next level is going to be, I think of it as like video games. Sorry, it's probably nerdy, but it's like that boss. Like,
level up.
Yeah. And we talked about like all the problems, but the other thing that's great about doing this is if you are healthy, you're going to see a lot of positive stuff, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've got certain things to work on, but there's a lot of data in here that shows how good things actually are, right? Like, I have very few problems that are coming out of the test, right? Like, I'm looking at vitamin B levels, melatonin, norepinephrine, oxidative stress, like, you know, all the supplements, all the work that's been done. The panel looks great. I have no issues in all that stuff. And then you have something weird like low dopamine. I have low dopamine.
And I guess what does that relate to? Dopamine having. Because I mean, if you're not feeling it, I guess it's just something that's in your body that I guess that they can see as, okay.
Well, everything's like a receptor and like a catalyst. Like, everything in the body like communicates with each other. So it's like dopamine just means, like he said, like something else there's like less of, or there's too much of something else, that it's like canceling out whatever reaction is supposed to occur to create that naturally occurring thing in your body. And so like that's what you're always trying to do, is like make sure that everything's balanced, so that one is not overweighing another. Because that's when you have, you know what I mean? That's
when the issues occur.
Yeah.
It's like when it's like really, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have any of
this. I'm not
this
sure about dopamine. I feel like that has something to do with like adrenaline or like your adrenals, but I don't know for sure.
Which would kind of make sense from the other, like, adrenal.
I'm almost positive.
Like overproduction of cortisol. Yeah. That's the same thing. And these neurotransmitter metabolites, that's what the dopamine is. Yeah. You know, I can only assume that's gut communication to the brain, and something's a little off, and that's, you know, with the GI Revive and all that should reset, and then you do the test, you know, when you're done 2 months later, and see if the stuff's been repaired.
So it's a 60-day kind of refresh, and then
like 2 to 3 months,
and then you take it again. Okay, makes sense.
So. Is this something I guess you keep doing? Like, you keep kind of taking these tests to kind of figure out, or is there like a certain,
depending on the results, I guess, right? Like, if you heal certain things. I mean, I'm assuming you could continue to do it every couple months if you wanted to. But I mean, if you're like healing those things that you're having an issue with,
then, you know, at a certain point you're pretty good, and you're just like,
well, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a question for Dave. Like, does he still do it on a regular basis? Like,
I don't know. I think it's something you should do. I'm sure there's a time frame, once a year, whatever it is, to just see where you are, see what needs to be changed.
Yeah.
I'm sure it can change fast.
Yeah, as I say, I'm sure things change based on whatever your environment, lifestyle, what you're eating, how you're feeling.
Oh yeah,
anything.
Yep.
Good stuff. Maybe we do another dive into this, you know, in a couple weeks or a couple months from now, and you can let us know. I guess,
how much did it cost?
How you're feeling? Oh yeah.
So
everybody likes price.
That's a good question.
Yeah, the 2 tests. I can't remember. I think it was around $500.
Okay.
For all the testing and analysis, and then the supplements are going to be different for everyone depending on what you need.
What you get, right?
So what the diagnosis is.
Sweet.
But what's $500 to your health? Pay the doctor now, or I don't know.
Pay for the test now, or pay the doctor later?
Yeah, I was looking for something else there.
Yeah, I mean, if the cost to make sure I don't have DNA damage is, you $500.
How much would you pay?
Sign me up all day.
You know what I mean? How much would you pay? Like, this is one of those things where it's
Yeah.
like, how much would you pay for this? This is
Prevention,
this
information.
is, yeah. And that's why I say
Knowledge
it's
is
like,
power.
when you think about just the history and just the way that healthcare is now in America, it's all like post. They're treating post things like it's already happened. Now what can we
It's
do?
treatment, not prevention.
Right. Now this is all pre.
Get ahead of it.
Which is why I think you're on the wave before you know what I mean? Before it actually kind of, I think this is going to be
The future.
Yeah, the future of healthcare in America. Hopefully, because then I
That'll
think
be
like
awesome.
you're going to pay $500 for this, but then how much are we paying in healthcare? You know, in costs in America for diabetes and all those kind of things that can be prevented as well if people are doing these kind of tests and taking it into their own hands.
Yeah.
We're relieving a lot of that extra expenditure.
Yeah, there's no question that investments like this, healthy food, exercise, gym memberships, when you add that all up, it's a whole lot less than being part of the system,
Right.
in terms of healthcare costs.
Bomb for that.
Yep.
I think that kind of wraps things up. I mean, I learned a lot, and I hope you folks did too as well. We're going to be back again next week as
Thank you,
always.
Justin, for sharing.
Yeah, we
course.
appreciate it, Justin. It's good information. And unless you guys have anything else, Justin, you can go ahead and send us off.
All right. We'll be back next week. Stay healthy with Heartland.